from Fox Sports.
Hey guys, this is Cole Liker.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the Unused Substitute.
The Unused Substitute.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the bench!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood, I got a problem and it's complicated. Going through changes and I just can't ignore the signs. There and now it's so loud it hurts. Hear me calling, hear me howl when the full moon
on the row, ball's gonna bounce down, it's free in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. You're listening to the Unused Substitutes live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. My name is Matt, and on the other end of the internet from me is a guy who has witnessed some of the craziest games and goals in Rowdy's history, so it's starting to think it might be down to him. Steven, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. And no, I did not score for the Rowdies this weekend as well as everybody else, so I apologize that I did not contribute to that fashion.
I can't believe you didn't even get subbed on in the second half.
Yeah, no, I'm a little fat for that, but I will say this: I really wish Soren Ellis had a chance to play because he was up there.
On the bench. I thought, especially with the
I was thinking
the man advantage, you're up 5-0.
5-0 man advantage. I don't know of a situation where it doesn't get any better than that for a boy to get a chance to, get some minutes, but
yeah. I wonder if that's if actually getting on the field and playing somehow is an eligibility issue as opposed to just being on the bench traveling and kind of living the experience. I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of. I think the way that they did the agreement with everybody as far as NCAA, I think they're fine now with those USL Academy contracts. But anyways, yeah, that would have been cool. I think that would have been the only way to have made this weekend better because this weekend was absolutely fantastic.
If he got on the field, it would have been 6-0. I'm just calling it. I'm just calling it. All right,
if you were there at the game this weekend, it would have been 7-0. So there you go.
Even I would have scored? They totally would have put me on.
Oh, you would have scored twice.
Oh, definitely. And at my age, well, I won't go there. So we will do the good, bad, ugly, but I want to hear about the trip. How was the bus? Like, what were the details? How did the whole experience come off to you?
All right, so Ralph's Mob and Skyway Casuals went by train. We went by bus. We went by car. I don't know if anybody flew, but
that would have been perfect because you could do a whole planes, trains, and automobiles joke if someone had done that.
I was so ready to do one, and then it dawned on me that nobody flew, at least that I'm aware of. So, and nobody went by boat. But anyways, the trip itself.
I would totally do that. By the way, that would be awesome.
Yeah, right. So I'm a sucker for overnight road trips like this. We're just drive up there, watch the game, and drive back. So to me, it was perfect. It was exactly the type of a trip that I like taking for road games because I got stuff to do the next day. So like I had an activity. I had to be at a place. I had to be over at my friend's house at 10 a.m. So like I was getting back in at like 6 a.m. and immediately getting like 2 hours of shut eye and then heading off to the next thing on the calendar. But no, the trip itself. I mean. Obviously, Charleston Battery fans have always been friendly. Like, they're not, a bunch of a-hole type nasty people like, some purple scum up the road are. They have always been good to us every time we've ever gone up. That good old-timey Southern charm, But, so we all hung out with them. We tailgated with them. got a chance to meet some of them, talk with some of them. They're great people, and it's depressing when you go and you look at the fact that, again, and this is the second or third time I've been to Charleston now, that it's so depressing that not more people from that city go and support that team. It's depressing when you see how small the supporter group is for that club, for as historic of a club as that is. It is shocking to me that not more people are passionate about it. But the game was amazing. The atmosphere, we absolutely rocked MUSC Health Stadium. All you could hear pretty much the entire game was nothing but the Rowdy supporters, and it was amazing. I mean, we owned the place. I mean, as far as that night, we absolutely owned that ground. The highlight, in my opinion, of the trip, as far as the actual, from a traveling supporter perspective, besides the fact that we won a historic game, which we'll get into, at the very end of the game, right around the 85th minute, and some of the guys from Skyway Casuals we all kind of nailed down the chant, the pacing for it during like halftime. We all sang it, and Mike Pendleton posted this up on Twitter. We sang a chant, obviously commemorating that stadium, and our little heartfelt plea for not tearing it down, even though we know it's inevitable anyways. Singing that was great because we got a chance to see the reaction of people from Charleston, because they had no idea we were going to do that. They had not a clue. So we came up and like I said, at 85th minute from our end of the field, and there were a couple of Charleston people that were already over, saying, thanks for coming and stuff. And we started singing that chant, and the group of us started chanting, and they were just in awe, saying thank you. We had at least one staff member for the Battery come up to us and say thank you. Well done for giving us that kind of gratitude. Because that ground is basically like holy ground to me. When I look at the history of U.S. soccer in the last 30 years, and I'm going to push it to 30 years, that ground and that club is a absolute just pillar of the community of the lower divisions in the United States. And to see them sell the field for a handful of $1 million, which isn't going to solve any of their problems, is just, God, it's so depressing. But I also had a chance to see, get a chance to walk through the Three Lions pub one more time, which is, that place is absolutely amazing.
Like all that on top of the fastest goal in the biggest road win in club history.
Yeah.
Not too bad of a weekend. So I want to go back to something you were talking about. It 307,000% sucks that they're going to tear this down and build condos over it. It's ridiculous. It's garbage. If they can find a spot downtown, do you think they benefit from it in the long run in terms of attendance and maybe growing the supporters groups at least?
I mean, I get the concept that as an owner, you have to do you feel like you have to do something to kind of revitalize the energy behind the club. Because I mean, what is it? For the last 10 years, right? I think the highest average they've had is something like 3,500 a game for a season, which is just pitiful, right? I don't know if going downtown solves the issue. Because the problem is that we don't know right now if that's actually where they're going to go. Yeah,
my secret back of my head fear is that they're going to pull a Harrisburg and say, well, we're going to take a year hiatus, and then they're going to show up playing, at a small private college field, and they're going to end up down in League One, and that would suck.
Yeah, and that is absolutely the fear that I have right now about the team itself, is how do you go ahead and sign the paperwork to sell the field before securing your next home? That just doesn't make a lick of sense to me.
Quite possibly, if you need the money to make payroll, is the first scenario that pops in my mind.
I mean, yeah, but still, even then, like, I would rather you just announce that you're selling the club or whatever, or shutting down operations, rather than play like this weird game of, well, we're going to move, but we're going to sell the stadium first and, like, what, go on a hope and a prayer that you're going to find something. I mean,
Right.
It's not like, because that's the thing. If you sell that grounds, or those grounds for 25, 30 million, well, then, yeah, you're bankrolling your club and paying off some debt, and you're probably good for the next couple of years. I mean, literally, at least it'll probably pay for 3 or 4 years of play and operations. You sold it for what, like 3? I mean, they sold it for like nothing. And that just doesn't, I don't get it.
It's red flags everywhere in this situation.
Yeah, it just bothers me so much. And the one thing that also scares me the most, and I know this is weird because obviously a stadium is a stadium, and the pitch, by the way, looked fine. I know they were having some issues earlier this year because the weather was kind of wacky up there in Charleston, and they couldn't figure out how to, get ahead of it.
Right.
Field looked immaculate, but as far as I'm aware, they don't know what's going to happen to Three Lions Pub yet.
I mean, the whole thing's going to come down, isn't it? I would assume.
Well, yeah, but like they don't know if they're gonna try and relocate, like, basically the location essentially, and open up a pub location somewhere downtown. Maybe they like, from the conversations that I was having, they have no idea what's gonna happen to all that stuff.
With all the stuff that's in there, there's got to be a home. They've got to find a home for it.
I mean, you got to remember. So for those that have never been to Charleston or have not heard of Three Lions Pub, this is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the largest, or like one of the 3 largest, or something like that. It's one of the largest collections of soccer memorabilia in the entirety of the United States.
Right.
In like, I would probably gander to think it's probably in the top, like, maybe 50 of the world. The story goes that one of the original owners for the club hired a guy to go to England, spend like a year there or 2 or something crazy like that, and collect as much memorabilia as he could get his hands on, and basically bankrolled the whole thing for him to just buy whatever he could find, and came back with absolutely just mind-boggling stuff, like jerseys from the 1940s, signed stuff from like game-worn jerseys of Champions League champion teams. Like, I mean, you name it, and it's in there. Old, new, game balls, team pennants. Like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely a sight to behold, and one of the coolest places, I think, like, on earth when it comes to soccer. But yeah, that's the scary part. As far as I know, and as far as they're aware, they haven't nailed anything down yet, so they don't know what they're going to do with all of that stuff. I mean, there's mutiny stuff in there.
Right.
A lot of mutiny stuff in there.
Like there was a mutiny, or at least one mutiny shirt at the MLS All-Star game, by the way.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. There should be.
It was nice. And there was definitely one Rowdies jersey, because Derek from Shamrock was I rolled in there neutral. Derek most certainly did not. And he, because I'm hijacking your whole thing here.
No, you're fine.
The game started late because of weather delay, so we were all packed into the concourse, which they announced the attendance at like 20,000 something. Concourse is not meant for that many people. Derek got quite a few hairy eyeballs and like 2 or 3 comments. It was a fun evening. Actually, there was one person, like, full on Orlando gear, was like, "Yeah, go Rowdies." I'm like, "Oh, you're new, aren't you?" You haven't been around here. What I actually was going to cut in for, and this is a game we probably weren't really going to talk about because it's too outside of the playoff teams, but Nashville's playing Hartford tonight. In the 4th minute, Hartford had player Mads Jorgensen sent off. First, a yellow card on a looked like a bad challenge. The stretcher came out. The card was changed to red. And it looks like this kid for Nashville, Michael Reed, probably has a broken leg.
Christ almighty.
Yeah, the first tweet about it says, it's from one of the Hartford groups, says, "Oh my dear God, I'm going to puke." The next one from a Nashville account, early card for Mads Jorgensen, who just ended Michael Reed's career. Wow.
So there's some live time, I guess, breaking news USL stories right there.
Go. So, we'll best wishes to Reed. And I mean, it sounded like everyone, the groups on both sides were like, yeah, that was awful. All right, so go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead and finish.
Oh, no. I was basically done.
Okay. So, like, we do the usual, like, good, bad, ugly. There really wasn't a bad or ugly that I came up with for this game.
Pshaw, we haven't done a good, bad, ugly like all year because this team's only lost 2 games.
I know. Like, there's, it's mostly, like, good, not as good, and is pretty much what it's been.
It's like great, good, and eh.
And I was trying to think, I went back and was rewatching this to yesterday when I got home from work because it's back to school week and putting my room together and stuff. This is a game where it's really hard to kind of evaluate it because, and this is, I'm watching this and the first thought going through my head, and I think this is, I was thinking the same thing on Saturday night. Charleston had that like extended break because their game in, where were they playing? Was it Louisville that they got or Loudoun where it was postponed? I think it was against Loudoun. So they haven't played in 10 days. They've had, not necessarily extra time because they did all their prep work for their game last week, the week before, and then it got called off. But, the guys are rested. They didn't have to run out there. No one got injured. No one got tired. Nothing happened during the game. They've had, you would think they have a little bit of an advantage going into this game. And then Lucky puts one in the net in the first minute and has a brace inside the first 5. No matter who you are, your game plan's completely out the window. Then you have a player sent off before halftime. Like, there's almost no way to honestly evaluate this game because it was just they were trying to get, they want to get a goal before halftime to try and get back in it. It doesn't work out. The player gets sent off, and then it's just open season in the second half.
Well, in all fairness, though, they actually had a number of decent chances in the first half to try and get at least one back. They had a couple chances to make it 2-1, and they missed by inches in some cases.
Right.
There's at least one cross that it missed the guy that was coming in to do the header, but it didn't miss by much, and he would have had a really good look on goal if he had made contact on it. So it wasn't necessarily as straightforward as you would think, especially considering that they actually completed more passes than we did on the night. So it wasn't like they were completely destroyed, statistically speaking in a context. What was interesting was the fact that mentally, almost from kickoff, you could tell that their energy was just not there.
Right.
And that was the thing that's striking to me. Now, also keep in mind, one of the reasons I think that we had such success against Charleston is that in this game, they went out with a 3-4-2-1 formation. They played a 3-back like we did, which is interesting because obviously we don't face that with other teams very often. But there's another point that's sort of kind of interesting to this, and that is when we played them earlier this year, they played with a 4-back formation. They did a 4-4-2 when we drew 1-1 at Al Lang. But that was an abnormal formation for them. Usually they've been playing with a 3-back. So I thought that was interesting in a lot of ways because since we practice against ourselves, obviously most often, we're used, our attackers are used to how do you break down a 3-back formation. We're used to that. We're one of the only clubs that is. So here Charleston comes out with the formation that they've been doing all year but didn't do against us earlier, and we literally just walked all over it. We knew exactly where people would be. We knew exactly how to do it, so we didn't need a lot of passes to break down a team. We just knew where to go. And that's one of the things that struck me about how quickly Kasana scored that first goal, the build up to that was like non-existent. It was just like, okay, here, done, goal. And you're just like, that's it. That was easy. There's nothing to that. And I think you saw that over and over again as with some of the goals that we had on the night was just we knew where people would be. We knew where their gaps would be on their back line and then that gap between the midfield and the back line. You know, we knew where their weaknesses were, and we just like played right through them like they were butter. And I thought for me that was the big thing that struck out to me.
So one thing I've been kind of thinking about as the season goes on, one of the things that Dan and I talked about last year when all the changes happened and then going into the season was, you know, we're really going to find out how good of a coach Neil Collins is or Neil Collins could be based on you know, he staked a lot of his initial reputation coaching into the roster moves that he made, the formations, the tactics, the way he runs training, and everything. There hasn't been a misstep. I mean, unless you want to call the Brandon Allen signing, maybe, you know, didn't work out that great. Except now he's doing good things for us in Memphis, so we appreciate that. It got me kind of thinking, you know, guys like Neil, guys like the head coach out in New Mexico, and you've got an expansion team, and I believe it's a first-time head coach out there too. We talk about some of the young talent that you see in USL, but there's a lot of really good coaching talent coming up through the league too, and it's, you know, we're seeing it kind of pay off because, you know, Charleston's got a, you know, we talked about it in the preview that the Anheuser, however you pronounce it, with he's been there as a player, as an assistant for a long time, and you've got kind of an old guard of guys like him and Bob Lilly and some of the other guys around the league, but you've got a lot of young up and coming coaches, and it's interesting there's a lot you can kind of get out of this league watching not just the players on the field, but what the coaches are doing off the field as well to prepare these teams.
Yeah, and that's exactly what your lower division in a country should be about, is you give young managers or novice managers a chance to give themselves an identity, get themselves used to coaching in that atmosphere. And if they find success over the stretch of a couple of seasons, you might have the opportunity to bounce up to the next level. Because obviously coaching changes happen quite a bit, like in any country's top flight. So it's all about trying to get yourself 2, 3, 4 seasons of like really good success. You know, and again, success in the lower division doesn't necessarily mean wins or championships. Sometimes it's just consistency. Sometimes it's just play style and being able to play against anybody that you are up against successfully. Because again, you know, when you're grading a coaching ability, again, you don't really necessarily care about wins. You could draw teams or even lose to teams, but if you lose looking good and implementing your system, if you are a higher level team looking for a new coach and looking for something innovative, well, right. I mean, that's what you're looking for as far as that coach, even though if you didn't win against the big game, that's okay. Yeah,
the theory being you can give this coach better players and he'll get better results with what he's trying to do.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's so, you know, there's going to be a balance of where there's not really a right or wrong answer for that. Like, I'm not opposed to having a coach with Charleston, for example, that's been around forever. That's fine. You know, it's not like Charleston's been bad. No,
I mean, they've won championships. They've had Open Cup runs. Like, he's around forever because he's done it.
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention he has players that he coaches that move on to the next level, and that's the important thing too. So, you know, but it is interesting. Like, I'm glad. That's one thing that's good about expansion. I know that there's a lot of talk about expanding too quickly, as it were. But there's also this thought process that the more teams you have, the more coaching positions you have, the more roster positions that you have, the more referee assignments you need to dish out. And I know that's one thing that, like, especially the latter, something that a lot of people, you know, obviously we bash on referees all the time in this country. Sometimes it's pretty deserved. But at the same time, you need opportunities to grow. And if you're only running an 8-team, NASL back in 2010 or 2011.
Right.
There's not a lot of chance for a lot of referees to get a lot of time at the professional level for them to get ready for the MLS, for them to get ready for a FIFA assignment one day. But now when you're in a division that has 34 teams in it or something crazy like that, suddenly you need to have a much larger pool of referees, which gives more people the chance to get exposed to it, more people the chance to develop their own skills, and that way you can try and filter out some more talent to kind of bubbles up to the surface to go into MLS, to maybe go into the FIFA ranks. So it's that whole concept of the rising tide lifts all boats type deal. And so, the expansion for the league and the pace that they've had for the last couple of years, that's where it's important. Obviously, the big next step is just keeping it sustained, which is what we were talking about last week with, the split with League 2 and the 2 teams and things like that, or League 1 and all the 2 teams and what that might look like. And we had that big discussion was it 2 weeks ago, I think. But that's part of it. All of this plays into itself, as far as all of this is concerned. So
yeah, I think the gut reaction when you talk about expanding and bringing new teams in is always looking at it from the players first. And I think there's a valid point to be made that at a certain point and possibly, we're getting there, but it's so different between the two conferences about diluting the talent pool when it comes to the players. But at the same time, like you pointed out, giving guys shot at being a head coach and showing what they can do already and what they could possibly do with some development. And then, so those two kind of balance each other out. And then the referees developing is good. The bad thing is that we have to watch them learn on the job as they're running these games, trying to run these games that we're investing our time and money and energy in. But yeah, I mean, that's the way it is. I don't want, like I said, there's not much to do in terms of the bad and the ugly. I want to hop right to man of the match, because I think there's going to be some conversation about this. You were there seeing it with your own 2 eyes. Who would you give this to? I think I know who you're going to say, by the way.
Oh, I would bet, but I'm going to go out of left field. I'm going to take a piece of my supporter heart and apply it to my head here. My man of the match, just for completely selfish supporter reasons, is Malik Johnson. And the reason for it is we were one of the guys that we went with, and I don't remember, for the life of me, I don't remember who it was that was saying this to me, well into the game. Much later than the goal was scored. He was saying something where he was telling Malik, if you score a goal, you better come and celebrate with us. Like, we're going to be here for you, Malik, because, of course, Malik is playing on that right-hand side as a midfielder during that first half. So, when the ball was coming up towards us in our end of the field and getting close to us, one of the guys was yelling that over to Malik. So, when, of course, you get the random, Olympico goal, I mean, he didn't hesitate. He immediately ran over from the other side of the field. He basically, I think he might have, high-fived, one guy that was warming up near the corner flag, and then just, immediately ran over to the other side of the field and got the other guys to go to the other side of the field from where he was to celebrate with the traveling support, which, again, we don't get a chance to necessarily do very often because we're up away from the field at home. So that was one of the coolest moments, I think, that we've really ever had as a supporter group, because, again, it doesn't happen very often. It only really happens on road trips where we get those really celebrating together hand-in-hand moments. So my man of the match goes to Malik Johnson for doing what he did, coming over, celebrating with us, getting the team to come over and celebrate with us, which was amazing. It was fun. Everybody enjoyed it. We all loved having that opportunity together. So that's my man of the match, and that's why. Yeah, totally selfish, completely not normal Steven reasons for man of the match, but That's what I'm doing this week.
There's a fantastic picture out there on the internet of just the team. It has, I guess I'm assuming it's post game, the team and the fans celebrating. There was another picture someone posted earlier of all the fans out in the parking lot before going in, and I'm like, oh, this is definitely the shot I'm going to use for the image that goes along with the header image that goes along with the show. But then like an hour later, Leo posted, I think, first place I saw it on Instagram. And I'm like, I got to use this. And I went back and subbed that picture in because it's just cool. Like, we're 22 games in, 13 wins, 7 draws, and 2 losses. And I think the guys are starting to understand they've got something really special going on this year, and are celebrating it, and rightfully they should. And for the number of fans, and the loudest fans that were in the stadium, the number of comments made online and during the broadcast about it, deserve something, and you could say, well, they got a 5-0 win and saw lots of milestones as well. Like, you could be happy with that. But yeah, having that happen, like I remember when we went to Fort Lauderdale for Georgie's hat trick against Fort Lauderdale, and it wasn't really the stadium wasn't really set up in a way where players can run over and celebrate with the fans afterwards, but they all came by after the game, and were high-fiving, and like I never get the chance to do this unless it's a road game, but I still have like selfies on my phone with me and Joe Cole and me and Georgie and even Tommy Heineman, and like they all came through and hung out with us and before going in the locker room, which was it's one of the rare chances you get to do that. Because these fans that were there generally are going to be up in the mob section and where the casuals are, like even after the game, breaking stuff down. Like, they're not out there running up to the getting on the field for the autographs, because it's mostly for like the kids and the families that are there. But to get kind of close, we had the pregame kickoff event down there at the auditorium. But really, that's the last time you're like face to face, talking to them, shaking hands, stuff like that, until you have a situation like this where they're all going nuts, and that's kind of cool to see. Yes. Yeah, like I said, totally out of the box for me a little bit, but that's the reasons. And I wish, I mean, just as a side note, I wish that they would acknowledge supporters a bit more at home when they do goal celebrations, because typically they go and celebrate with the guys that are warming up on the side of the field. Right. At home, which again is one of those funny things. If you ever notice, pay attention. Almost I think like 90% of goal celebrations that this team does at home on our end of the field, they go and celebrate with the guys warming up in that. Yeah, they're in that corner. Or they got family members there or something like that. And so it's always kind of funny because it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, I guess. Even though the bulk of the fans are on the other side of the pitch. The one that stands out, in my memory was it was the end of, I want to say, the 2013 season, and like we had just started doing the podcast. They let us onto the field as the social rowdies, what they were calling it then for the game. We're playing Indy 11, and I think we got a late equalizer and drew. So it's final game of the season, and there were no playoffs. Like, this was it. And I don't remember if it was even a goal. I think it was a goal celebration, because it was Evans Frimpong that did this. I don't remember if he scored the goal or not, though. But he hops the barricade, the ad boards. And, Dan and I were kind of joking at the time, like, he trying to establish some relationships, make himself kind of popular, hopefully get re-signed. And he's, rips off the jersey, and he's got Ralph's Mob #1 fans, like, handwritten on his undershirt. And we've got a picture of him post game with that. That's the one. And really, other than that, I can't. And I kind of wonder. They do it with the Open Cup, where they'll move the supporters groups down like right behind the goal. You'd probably see a lot more of this stuff if that was a permanent thing. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's always that's always one of the things that you could think of as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's kind of just like an is what it is type moment. But, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty long. Honestly, if the supporters end up moving one day, that's going to be a long conversation with a lot of people before that happens. That's not going to be something that's just going to be like forced onto everybody involved type of deal. Like I always told Lee, this is going back several years now, if we ever decided to move, that's going to be a really long conversation, because we would want to make sure that, like,
I wouldn't want to piss off like the rest of the fan base and just kind of surprise it on them. I would want them to be a part of it. I would want them to feel like they hear from us, like why, the supporters would want to make that kind of a move. What are the reasonings behind it? I want to make sure that the supporters are comfortable with it. And, so if it ever came to that, it'd be a pretty long conversation. But again, one of the benefits, one of the things that we've always thought of was being closer to the field for celebrating goals. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not sure if that's in the cards for even in the next several years, but it's something that's been kicked around before.
I just had my train of thought thrown off by a tweet. I'll come back to it later. It's and it's all fun and games until the first member of the mob or the casuals goes over the rail to celebrate too.
Nah, I honestly don't think that would actually happen.
Oh, I'd be placing prop bets on who specifically it would be. I'm not going to do it on the air, but I have a couple in mind. I could see it, in the right situation, an especially important goal or against a certain team. I could see it happening.
I'd wait to find out that you actually placed the bets before I actually ruined it for you and did it myself. I'll cost you all your money.
I didn't say I was going to tell you the right name. All right. Anything else about what? So, what time do you guys get back to St. Pete? By the way,
about 6 a.m. Actually, you know what's funny about this? So, funny story. The club, when the schedule got announced and they were trying to get all their away trips and all the bus plane tickets and everything ordered and getting everything organized for the year, couldn't find a decently priced plane ticket for this past weekend going into Charleston. Like everywhere they looked. Like, they were all apparently just absurdly expensive plane tickets.
Right.
So they ended up busing to Charleston, too.
I almost wonder if
it was infinitely cheaper than trying to fly everybody up and doing apartments, listen to me, flying everybody up and doing hotel stays and things like that. They actually went ahead and just busted because it was like, guys, I know it's kind of uncomfortable, but this is kind of the reality of it.
Right.
Like apparently plane tickets were running like almost $800 a pop for round trip. And they were like, yeah, that's just absurd. Like $800 or $900. And that was even with a layover. It wasn't even direct to anything in Charleston. So it was like, yeah, let's just rent a bus for like $4,000 and just be done with it or something crazy like that. So they ended up doing it. The reason why I bring that up, we actually arrived back at the stadium at the exact same time
that they got back.
Yes.
Nice.
We literally all pulled off the interstate and pulled into the stadium together, which was totally just a complete happenstance. Of course, everybody's asleep. Everybody's dead tired. Everybody's walking off the buses as zombies. So it wasn't like it's not like we were having this like crazy party type thing. It's like, nah, they're over there. We're over here. Let's just go in our cars and go home.
See, I'd be walking off the bus, chucking beers to the players and,
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
So, yeah, no, that was kind of funny. But yeah, it was, we got back around 6 a.m. Right at the crack of dawn.
I was curious about that because I was thinking, if you manage to leave right at the end of the game and traffic's normal, like maybe 5:30, it'd be interesting. So, would you recommend the bus trip?
Well, this is what I started the podcast off with tonight. I love and I adore there and back again on the same night trips because I'm a sucker for not spending money on hotels if I can help it.
Right.
So like I don't like doing it. So I did Portland as an overnight trip. Did I do Pittsburgh as an overnight? I think we had a friend that we stayed with Pittsburgh, but I didn't stay at a hotel. It was just happenstance. I was ready to fly back that night, but circumstances ended up doing a little different. But
right.
Like all the times I went to Atlanta, all the times I've done to North Carolina, Charleston, obviously the in-state stuff, that's all been there and back again, same night trips. I love doing those.
See, I always try and do it when I can stretch it out to like a 2 or 3 night stay. Like last year when I did Charlotte, we stayed in Charlotte for a couple days, and then we went headed back and stopped at my sister's in Atlanta for a few days before coming back to Sarasota.
Well, I'm a man on a really tight budget, so for me, the gas or whatever to get there and back again is pretty much all my spending money that I.
Yeah, I mean
that
that's why I stayed at my sister's house for like 3 days.
Yeah.
I know the feeling very well. I want to.
No, I personally, for me, I think that's the way to do it. So any like the Atlantas, the North Carolinas, the Charlottes, what's the one I'm looking for? The Charlottes, wow, it's suddenly blanking. Charleston. Those are all road trips that for me, just go up there, watch the game, and come back. Be done with it. Just do it in a night, and just be done with it. Because typically, unless you're driving yourself, you're probably sleeping on most of the way back home anyways, so you'll be fine the next morning.
I'm just thinking because that next one they have scheduled is the North Carolina away on a Wednesday, and I'm thinking, man, if they got back like 6:30, I could just hop in my car, drive right to work, and then just go teach for a full day. That'd be fine. I'm sure there wouldn't be any problems.
Hey, in all fairness, when we did the Portland trip in 2013, I took a day off of work. I flew out that morning and went to the game, hopped right on a plane, came right back, basically went home, took a shower, got changed, and went straight to work when I came back out.
See, I wouldn't
I literally had no downtime when I got back home.
I wouldn't even have time to do the shower part because work's halfway between the stadium and my house. The issue with that would be I've got my schedule now for the year, and my rougher classes are going to be all in the morning. Like if I had all the advanced classes in the morning, I could possibly do it, and kind of
because those kids take care of themselves pretty much.
Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got to go check and see. Maybe I can put a movie on. There's always that. All right, so a lot was made about the performance that Poku put in, and I'm certainly not going to take anything away from that. I think he 52 out of 55 passes, and just some beautiful passes out there too. What I need to do, and I meant to do this before tonight, and I didn't because I thought about it while I was at work today. I didn't get a chance to go back and do it. I want to see when a lot of these passes happened, because if it's after the player sent off, it's certainly a lot easier to complete passes at that point. And again, it's not just about completions. Like some of the passes that he pulled off were pretty nice. But to me, almost the ability to do that comes from the fact that Lucky's 2 goals in 5 minutes changed the entire face of the game. The game plan scrapped. It's out the window. They're just fighting to try and get one back, and then maybe try and get into it in the second half. So while it might seem like the easy way out to say Lucky with 2 goals, I'm gonna go. It's the first 2 goals in team history in Charleston. It's the first win in Charleston. I got to give it to Lucky. I think like him and Poker can be like a 1 and 1A. As far as like how close it is, I got to give him the edge for that because of the influence those goals have in shaping how the rest of the game goes.
I think that's fair.
I'll go with that.
Kasana's hustle is basically what creates that.
Right.
I mean, he was insane. That first 10 minutes of that game, that dude was a wild man. It was great.
So I have to. I know. Hoppino has at least 1 goal for Louisville. I don't know if he's scored more than that, and I know Brandon Allen had a couple goals for Memphis, but fair to say that we've gotten the better end of the moves that we made.
Oh yeah, come on, you kidding?
I mean, that Lucky trade has paid off. I mean, he's gotten a goal or an assist or multiple of each in every game he's played, except for the one against Red Bulls, where he did have one that was called back for offside. In theory, maybe could have been onside. He's just been fantastic since coming here. And, we knew, if you've been around the team for a while and you remember his first in here, Lucky was a fan favorite. He wasn't a world beater, but man, the performances he's turned in since he's come back, man, he's Guenzati's up there now with 12 or 13, and I don't know that Lucky gets that close, but he's going to push him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably will. You're definitely right. He's not going to actually, overpass him. But yeah, I think he's going to do it. Now, there's going to be a question I'm going to ask you towards the end of the show when we do a little bit of a preview for this upcoming weekend against Birmingham. But I hope I don't get killed for this in the parking lot before the game on Saturday. But there is a very important question I'm going to ask you, and it's going to be directly related to Lucky. And we're going to see what you have to say when we get to that point. But is there anything else from this amazing 5-0 crazy awesome victory that you want to address?
I don't think so. Except maybe I'm going to change man of the match to the traveling supporters.
You're so lame.
Doing it.
You go on this long spiel about why. Okay, we're going to change it to this.
Yeah, but it was the energy provided by the supporters that allowed Lucky to cash in those 2 goals. It changed the face of the game so that Poku could complete 52 of 55 passes. So it all goes back to the supporters.
It all goes back to good road support.
Football without Lucky is nothing. And supporters. And Poku.
Okay.
And us. So other USL games we were keeping an eye on. Red Bull 2-0 over St. Louis, because St. Louis is not good and is not a playoff team, even if they are in playoff position. Charlotte lost one on a late goal to Louisville. So they both lost. They're still equal on points. Charlotte's 1 win behind St. Louis. North Carolina dropped 1-2 to Indy. Which is, I don't mind actually. Indy overtakes Nashville, moves up into 3rd spot, and North Carolina stays still a little bit back. So your traditional table, not counting tonight's games that are in progress and not completed yet. Rowdy's still on top, 22 games, 46 points. Red Bull 2 points behind. Indy 11, still with 2 games in hand, 6 points back. So you don't even have to really worry about that 2 games in hand because of the distance between the teams at this point. Nashville, 38 points in 4th place. Those are your current home playoff teams. North Carolina FC in 5th, Pittsburgh in 6th, Louisville 7th, Ottawa in 8th, Charleston in 9th, and St. Louis on the win tiebreaker in 10th right now. Charlotte, this weekend's opponent, Birmingham, Bethlehem, Loudoun, Memphis, Atlanta United, Hartford Athletic, and Park Rangers in dead last. You've got 3 teams now. Your top 3 at or over 40 points on the season, starting to pull away a little bit more. Nashville 2 points behind, and then it gets a little bit closer. North Carolina with 37 through position 8, and then Charleston and St. Louis are just happy to be here with 26 and 24 points. We do have, for the first time I think in a while, if not since beginning of the season, you've got teams with a negative goal differential in the top 10. Charleston at -3 after conceding. That was the other thing. And I don't want to say I felt bad for Charleston. They're a team of professional players. They have to learn to deal with this. But the supporters who, we, like you mentioned top of the show, generally we get along pretty good with them. I wanted one more goal to get us level on goal differential with New York again, because we're 2 points ahead. We're tied at wins. I'd like, and just to be able to say you have the same goal difference as New York is kind of an impressive thing to say in this league.
That's true.
I would take that. And then St. Louis in 10th place with a -1. Your points per game table, we once again have an alignment with the same teams in the top 10, although 4 of them are in different places. Rowdies are on top, 2.09 points per game. Red Bull and Indy just behind at 2 points per. Nashville at 1.81, Pittsburgh 1.75, North Carolina 1.68. Ottawa 1.57, Louisville 1.5, Charleston 1.37, St. Louis at 1.26. So you're still staying around that kind of 1 1/3 points per game, gets you in the playoff positions. The 2 big differences here are Pittsburgh and North Carolina FC are flip-flopped from the regular table. Ottawa and Louisville as well, too, when you're talking about your top 10 teams. Charlotte's a couple spots down compared to where they are in the regular table. But just focusing on the top 10, that's where they're at. So we're getting close. We're by halftime on Saturday, we'll be 2/3 of the way through the season. So I think you'll start to see this table start to look pretty much the same for a while. as the teams move into their run-ins to get into into the playoffs. Which, by the way, and, we talked about possibly having an emergency podcast last week to discuss the breaking news that USL has released the confirmation that the playoffs will be officially called the playoffs, and both games will end in a final, which they are going to call the final. Breaking news. That required a press release.
I can't. Oh, that's so embarrassing.
Things I'm
Can you
actually
imagine
interested
having to write that.
I know. Things I'm actually interested in hearing about. The Business of Soccer event went on tonight at Al Lang in the locker room. They had they've been posting pictures out there. It was Neil Collins. It was Lee Cohen. I think Brian Auld from the Raise Rowdies organization. Zach Steinberger was out there. Ryan Madden from USL headquarters, I think he works with League One, was out there talking about kind of the business. And this event is geared towards like the business partners, the Chamber of Commerce people, the sponsors, stuff like that. There's an event next Tuesday, which I've signed up for. Did you get signed up for it?
For the supporter
summit
thing? I actually got sent a reminder email that I need to still do that. But
So-
yes, I'm still planning on going.
Yeah, I did mine
But
over
I'll
the
be
weekend. I'll probably be a few minutes late just getting there because it's end of school on
I'm
the.
late.
But it's from 5 to 7:30 in the locker room. Looks like a similar setup. I've turned in some of the topics I'd like to see discussed, and we'll see what happens. But it's kind of cool they're reaching out to the area around this. Like this supporter summit is basically an event I've been calling for I don't know 2-3 years now. So I'm really glad they're doing it. Moving on, Lucky has made the team of the week, which really I know Rowdies put out there, and you could make the case like you could have several of the players in team of the week, like Poku. You could put in there. You mentioned, despite the 5-0 scoreline, Charleston did have chances. Robinson had a pretty good game. He could be, possibly up for consideration. Something we're waiting for. I think we'll get the official announcement tomorrow because I think it's going to go this way. Whether or not Guenzati is going to be player of the month. He won the fan voting, which is 51% of the overall vote, pretty handily. They'll announce it, I think, around noon tomorrow. You think he's going to win?
I hope so.
Number one in our hearts, and apparently number one in the month of July. All right. A little bit earlier today, Jake chatted with Caleb Richards, and we've got a few minutes of the interview talking about life in St. Pete and trying to keep track of how Norwich is going to be doing in the Premier League this season. So let me go ahead and play it for you. It's about 5-6 minutes. We'll come back and talk about Birmingham, and then we'll be just about ready to wrap it up.
Hello, Jake.
Caleb, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
Good.
Have a nice training session today?
Yeah, it was tough today, but it was alright. There's a
Alright,
few clouds
good.
today, so it weren't too hot.
That's always nice. So first off, congrats to you guys on the impressive win over the weekend. That was a really dominant performance you guys put out. I imagine that's exactly the kind of a performance you want to have coming off a loss like you had in New York.
Yeah, really good. We seemed to do that well. After our loss against North Carolina, we bounced back and won the next few games. Got some good results, so we're just happy to do it again, but in that fashion especially.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if you're aware, but at the moment you're leading the Rowdies in minutes played. And I know you're a guy who's been on a lot of loans in your career, your young career still. Is this the most amount of minutes, the most consistent play you've gotten since you've turned pro?
Yeah, I think it is. On my other loans, I've been in the team because as a defender, you don't. If you're doing well, you don't really get taken out of the team. But I've been in and out teams and I've been on loans, so it's really good to be consistently playing, improving with the team and individually.
Yeah. I imagine as a young guy, just getting that opportunity to prove yourself, get out there and develop is so crucial for you at this point in your career, just having the opportunity to get out there and mix it up and play.
Yeah, it really is, especially with the competition within the team for positions, especially in defence. So it's always keeps you on your toes and keeps you having to perform because someone could easily just take your place.
Yeah. So yeah, I know you're kind of entrenched as a defender with the Rowdies, but I think you've also played some midfields back in England, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I played a couple of games midfield for a team in the lower leagues in England, but that's not really my position. My position is mainly just left back. I played wing back here once or twice, but I feel a lot more comfortable in like a defensive role.
So have you figured out how you're watching the game on Friday yet? Have you figured out all the streaming situations to watch the Premier League over here yet?
Yeah, we've got away. We was watching the end games at the end of the season, so we're all ready for Friday. Yeah, big game.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I'm just curious. When you're out on a loan like this, are you in contact with anyone at Norwich about how things are going? Do they check in every once in a while just to talk and see how things are going?
Yeah, well, obviously I speak to my friends still back in my team, and then the coaches and staff are really good. They sent a few out here to come watch the games and training, and also I speak to a couple of the staff after each game, like just to let them know how it went and like how I felt in the game. So yeah, they keep track of everything, and they're really good with that.
Right. Yeah. And Norwich was just over in the States last month to do the Yellow and Green Dream camp too. Yeah, and I know some of the players from that camp came to St. Pete's to meet some of the players. Did you meet some of the kids from the camp for that?
I didn't actually get down to that, but I saw what was going on and it looked really good.
Yeah, so I just kind of want to ask you about life in St. Pete's. Are you living in St. Pete, first of all? I know it's kind of like a question. Some guys are in Tampa, some guys are in St. Pete. Where are you living in Tampa
Yeah,
Bay?
I'm staying in St. Pete, just before the bridge towards Tampa. So I've got the best of both. I can get to Tampa quite easily. I can get to St. Pete, but it's a really good area. It's really nice. There's a lot to do.
No, I was going to ask, are you rooming with anyone from the team? Are you on your own?
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm with Jordan Doe and Poku. We all stay together in our apartment, and then in the same complex, we've got a load of other guys as well in like different apartments, in pairs and like on their own. So we're all close. If we want to do something, if we want to have like a barbecue or something, we're all close.
That's cool. Yeah. So what do you get up to on your off days then?
Usually I just recover, go to the pool, maybe go to the mall. Just depends whatever we're feeling like on that day.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about Norwich's prospects this season in the Premier League?
Yeah, it will be tough. I think I'm confident that they'll do well though. They've got a tough start to the season with Liverpool, but it's you want the best test, and I think that they will do well. I think they'll start the season quick.
All right, Caleb. I think that's all I've got for you. Thanks for talking today, and best luck on Saturday. Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, later.
Bye.
All right. So beginning of the year at the season kickoff party, when Dan and I talked to him for a little bit, we kind of talked about, there's going to be a point in the summer where you like it's just going to get so hot and humid. He's like, oh yeah, I've been warned. I'll be ready. And it was just like, I don't know if people telling you about it is one thing, but then actually experiencing it as someone who doesn't experience it that often. So I kind of laughed when they, about what do you do in your off time on your off days, and like the first thing was go to the pool. Like I know it's in his mind, like, damn, it's hot.
I always enjoy Jake's like short little like spurt interviews like that, where it's like 5 or 6 minutes, where I got a feeling like the player's expecting like some like 10 or 15 minute, 20-minute long conversation, and it's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, because you just it's one of those like you tell whether or not they're into it, because it's a 1 sentence, 2 sentence answer maybe, and then every now and then you've got like the ones that'll just it's guys that you don't maybe talk to as much after the games or during the week, and they're kind of like happy to be there, and then they've got like prepared answers for everything.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of cool.
I always get a kick out of that. It's awesome.
We'll have to, we were talking about this before the show, we'll have to work out some kind of interview for next week, because there's no game next weekend, and then they're away to, that's the away game to North Carolina. So I guess, I couldn't really do that game because we're going to do the show live from Shamrock after it, and it'd be hard for me to do that and be in North Carolina too. But thanks for Caleb for coming on, making time to talk to Jake about it. One other thing I want to throw in there before we get to the preview, because I thought this was cool as hell. The Rowdies announced it today. I may have been the first person to sign up for this, because my phone goes off whenever they tweet. I get the notification. They've created a teacher pass for the rest of the regular season. So the last 6 home games, teachers can, and it's kind of, I guess they didn't say Manatee, Hillsborough, whatever, Pinellas only. They were just hey, register, and I guess they background check it and see. Because I had to list like the school and the county and everything. Teachers can get 2 free tickets. I'm assuming availability, of course, is going to factor into it. If all of a sudden every teacher in the county in the area shows up and wants tickets and they're not there. 2 tickets for the remaining home matches, which is 6 games, which is kind of cool. It's a neat little the offer to put out there. I have a season ticket already, but I signed up, and I'll try and bring some friends and others. So cool for them for doing that. And I brought some staff members from my school earlier this year, and now they've relocated to Michigan, and they're going to be Lansing fans, unfortunately. But like my principal, I've run into in the parking lot a couple times, and it's weird seeing work people not at work when that's usually the only place you see them. But it's cool, and I think I have the beginning of a teachers only supporters group getting off the ground. We've got a hashtag. When I teach for the Rowdies. So we'll do that. We'll have our big metal mugs to drink our beverages out of at the tailgates, and bring our red pens to do all the corrections, and we'll be all set. So that's kind of cool. I'm glad that another way of reaching out and finding ways to get people into the stadium, or giving them some motivation to get there if they haven't come previously. But it is that time of the show. It's Birmingham Hate Week, from the not really that dreaded, although they've had a couple good results in the last few games. But the dastardly villains from Birmingham are going to roll into town this week, sporting a 6-10-5 record. They are 2-5-3 away, but they've won 3 of their last 5, which is a nice little bump for them, and they're starting to maybe find the form they had hoped to start the season with. Bringing in the leading scorers, they've got 2 players, Chandler Hoffman, who is a familiar name for USL fans, and Prosper Cassim with 4 goals apiece. They've also got 2 players with 3 goals and 3 players with 2. They haven't scored a ton, but they do spread it out a little bit. Leading the way with assists is Daigo Kobayashi with 4. Again, 2 players with 3 players with 2 behind him. Cassim has created the most, or taken the most shots, 29, Hoffman 28 right behind him. Third player, Daniel Johnson with 27. Cassim and Johnson lead the way in terms of chances. Prosper's created 28, Daniel 26. And Matt Van Okel, their goalkeeper, has another familiar name for NASL and USL fans. Kept 6 clean sheets this year. They're allowing 1.7 goals per game. Keeping about 48% average possession. We're always big fans of goals outside the box. They've got 5 on the season. They do have 1 player suspended, Mikey Lopez, for red card offenses. I guess he got double yellowed in the last game. And our very own Dominic Orduro is 1 card away from a second accumulation suspension. And this is the last part I just added, possibly the most important part. The USL title belt is on the line, brother. Maybe they should rename it the USL 24/7 title. Have you heard of this thing? Do you know what it is?
I don't even care about it. I've been told what it is.
It's the most important thing in soccer.
And I'm like, no.
Yes. I am a very strong. I'm a big yes on this. So, if you're not aware of what this is, there used to be a Twitter account that did this for NASL too, and I'm not sure if it's the same guy. I think it might be. Basically, at the beginning of the season, the champion, so at that point, the defending champion, Louisville City, comes in as the holder of the USL title belt. And the first, if they lose a game, then they lose the belt to that team. If they draw, then they retain the belt. Titles do not change on draws or count outs if for you wrestling fans. So the belt, the Rowdies held the belt for a while this year. But Birmingham is currently coming in as the holders of the USL title belt because they beat the team that 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 beat Louisville. It's the single most important thing. Like, we've won the no quarter derby.
Like it's the single most important thing.
It is.
Oh, God.
It is. Look, I'm just saying right now, if we can finish the season with the title belt, then we will have won the no quarter derby. The Great Pirate Chest will have retained after the season ends the USL title belt, and then I'm calling that a treble. I will make graphics of this too. This will be, and actually you could say it's a quadruple because you got to add in the Eastern Conference title, possibly a quintuple if you're going to count the regular season championship, which I think we should.
I'm so ashamed of you right now.
And then also, look, if Orlando can count the stupid skills competition plate as a trophy, then we can count the only team in Florida to, well, I guess no, Miami FC made the NPSL playoffs and beat the Cosmos, so that's cool.
Beat the Cosmos, which granted, I will take anybody beating the Cosmos, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll agree with that. So I guess we can't claim the only team in Florida to make the playoffs, although it would be close.
But their playoffs don't matter. Like, literally.
I mean, they beat the Cosmos, so it matters.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
I promise you it doesn't matter.
Totally doesn't. Well, I mean, compared to the USL title belt, of course, nothing else matters. I want to remember the old NWO belt, the big gold belt that they spray painted?
Are you legitimately asking me something wrestling related?
Yes.
I don't know anything about wrestling.
Yes, you do.
I literally know nothing about wrestling, about all of wrestling. I have never sat and watched a single wrestling show from beginning to end ever in my entire life.
All right, we're going to body slam you on Saturday too. I want to get like the one of these title belt replicas and just spray paint USL on the front, and that's going to be the USL title belt. I want to see. It's Wednesday. There's time. I want to see a USL title belt 2-pole at Al Lang on Saturday, without me creating it, because I don't have time. If not, then this weekend's an utter failure. It's a disgrace. Or as Drogba would say, well, no, I can't say that on Radio St. Pete. But it's a disgrace. All right. What's your thoughts on Birmingham?
Well, obviously on paper, everything should scream, oh, we're going to crush them. Yeah, except that they've also, they haven't lost in 4 straight games. And that's important. Like, I mean, obviously trends and momentum are really, really important at this level. And so it's almost setting itself up. I don't want to call it a trap game. You know, it's such an overused term, but it's a game.
I don't think we have games that we thought would be trap games this year haven't been.
This is true.
And again, credit for that's got to go to Neil Collins and Martin Patterson and the coaching staff. So, yeah, it's a game that you would think would be a trap game, but I don't think trap games exist to this team.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, but I mean, you look at who they've beaten, right? They beat a Charlotte Independence team that had been on a good run.
Playoff team.
They beat North Carolina. They actually destroyed Atlanta United too. And then they drew Ottawa. Those are like, I mean, obviously Atlanta's a garbage team, but they got 4 goals against them. So I mean, it's in a shutout. So those are 4, like, on the surface, pretty impressive results to a certain degree. So against some decent competition, or at least teams that have been on a good run, things like that. It's more of a question of how up for the game Birmingham is. Because obviously when we went up there and we brought some traveling supporters, it'd be interesting to see if anybody from Birmingham comes down to Al Lang. We really dictated a lot of the pace of that game as far as up in Birmingham. So it'll be interesting to see just how they come out against us, because I mean we really gave them a crushing up there in Birmingham. So I don't really know what to expect in some ways from this. I think I'm going to revisit. This is going to be the topic that I was waiting towards the end of the show to ask, because one of the things that immediately popped out in my mind when I saw the lineup for this past weekend is there were several things that shocked me, concerned me, made me worried. I was actually pretty worried about this walking into the game after I saw the starting lineup. Now, after the fact, obviously I was completely wrong, and I was happy to, been panicking for no reason. My question at this point is, do you continue starting Lucky as the striker to pair up with Gonzatti, with Guizi, or do you start phasing back in Tejada? Or do you just let Tejada sit the bench and ride the M. Kasana wave as long as necessary?
It's a nice problem to have, I think, with for Neil, because whoever you bring in, you've got, like, it would be fun to see Lucky and Wanbo start, just to see the hair action going on out there. Yeah. But also both are certainly good enough to start on their own. And then you'd be bringing a Golden Boot contender off the bench. If you bring in Juan, you're bringing in a young guy, tons of energy, who has scored a number of goals and is kind of riding high at the moment after getting into his first international goal for Panama. Or you've got Lucky, who's been on fire since coming over here. Like, sometimes you hear coaches talk about it. It all depends on how they do in practice, and you kind of not sure whether you believe them or not. But I really think that's what it comes down to here. And I'm gonna guess that Seba starts, although maybe you look at the table and you say, well, maybe we'll give him a break and we'll rest him, and maybe he'll come on in the second half. Although, you mentioned how is Birmingham going to come out? They're just 2 points from a playoff spot right now, and Charleston and St. Louis, the bottom to the 9th and 10th team, play each other on Saturday. Depending on that result, and if Birmingham could come here and get a result, all of a sudden they're in the top 10, and they're in those playoff positions. And honestly, neither Charleston nor St. Louis has really looked that great in the last few weeks. Charlotte hasn't either. We kind of talked about those being the teams that would be likely to do it, but maybe Birmingham has a chance to sneak in here. And if you said they've not lost in 4 straight, then they're kind of starting to bounce up a little bit when some of these other teams are struggling. Maybe this is, and that's probably what they're being told. This is, if you're going to make a move, now is the time to do it. And getting a result at Al Lang would probably give them the confidence they need to go into the last, for them would be last 13 games of the season, or 12 games after that. So it's interesting. I think Birmingham's definitely got the motivation. They're not out of it yet by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure who you'd start. I mean, I almost think I'm sitting there thinking
it really is a hard call.
I don't know that there's a wrong decision, I think, basically to make, because you stick with what you played in Charleston, because they produced so much. And if it's not working out, and all of a sudden you don't have 5 goals with 30 minutes to go, then you can bring in somebody else, and you've got a chance to put some goals on the board too. Like, Birmingham is a team that statistically gives up nearly 2 goals a game. Like, there should be plenty of opportunities for any of these guys to score.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of highlights, right, of the of the lineup this weekend was the fact that obviously we had Soren Ellis on the bench, and he didn't get a chance to come in, which was disappointing. I'm waiting for the chance to see that first academy kid technically see the field. Obviously Tejada was on the bench, and he's, realistically, he was the only regular player from the season so far that didn't see the field of the starting lineup. But for instance, like Adoro was not there, which was interesting to me, that he was not there for that game. I don't know what the story is on that, but that was definitely kind of eye-opening. Obviously McCarthy. And here's something else to think about. We did not bring the maximum amount of players to fill out the bench this past weekend.
That was going to be my response is, they've been pretty good this year about in their match previews about guys who are injured, like if they're questionable, if they're probable, if they're doubtful. There was nobody listed in the match preview as being an injury concern.
Yeah.
But we only had 6 guys on the bench, one of them being an academy player.
Yeah, exactly.
So you
really wondering.
You had Diakite suspended, so he wasn't going to travel. But something seems like, the guys and it's funny because the guys that have been injured, Tanari gets on,
and got an assist, right?
Yeah, and I think so. Siaj comes on, gets his first goal. Like, these are the guys that have been out. Ryan Felix makes an appearance. He hasn't been injured, but he just hasn't been in contention for playing time for large chunks of the season. We didn't bring in Konopka because you almost never bring in your reserve goalkeeper. The other 2 guys that didn't play were Soren Ellis and Tejada. Like, did they just decide they were? You talked about how they seem to know the positions, like they seem to know what Charleston was going to do. Did they know so far in advance that what they felt like they were going to be able to do? They just gave some guys some time off. I wouldn't think you would do things like that, but
yeah. But then again,
everything seemed to go the right way. Yeah, because when that lineup came out, I think it's fair to say it all could have gone very bad. If someone had gotten a red card, if we'd given up an early goal, there's always something that could happen, and then it seemed like we weren't really set up or prepared to bring in guys to counteract it with the guys that were on the bench. Thank God for Lucky, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about the names that didn't travel to that game. Aduro, Najem, Leon Taylor, Sean Barry. Like, seriously? That's some really important pieces from, I mean, obviously maybe not necessarily some of them, but these are players that we have seen this year. These are players that have seen the field, and they didn't even get the bench on a week that we had a shorthanded bench. I don't know what's going on, but that's a lot of missing names.
Yeah.
That makes me rather uncomfortable, not to mention McCarthy. So, I mean, that's 5 players that could have been on that last bench spot that weren't officially. So, like I said, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, obviously the team is keeping things very tight under wraps, for reasons that are their own. But I don't know what's going on, but that has me very nervous.
Yeah, and then and the McCarthy thing is kind of the one that stood out at first because that's the one guy you expect to see in that one spot. And as best we know, he picked up a knock, I think, late in the St. Louis game. Was warming up to play against New York in New York, and then kind of like a late scratch, and they kind of said it was day to day, and then wasn't out there. So I don't know. It's weird stuff. Maybe they're just trying to give some guys some rest at a certain point in the season, but as usual, they're going to be very quiet about what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah, and which, I mean, it's lower division soccer. A lot of teams tend to do this. They're not the most forthright with things going on behind the scenes and things like that, which as somebody trying to transition into the media aspect and something that just in general as a fan trying to follow the team and try and create storylines, to create buzz, to create topping points, during the season, during the midweek, to get people talking. it's always bothered me that we've never had better or a more up-to-date picture of injuries. You get, unless it's like a Stanley Cup playoffs, every other major sport out there pretty much like fully discloses exactly what's going on with any individual player at the moment. Like, we know Vita Vea got hurt at practice yesterday, has an MRI scheduled, I think, for Friday. I mean, come on. We know that. Like, they publicly announce that. But yet we had 5 people missing with an empty bench spot in Charleston, and like, the team doesn't even say anything to us about, or even put them on an injury report at all. And I will never understand the concept of what, like, you're trying to outfox the Charleston Battery. Like, I don't get it. I don't know if it's a contractual thing where they're trying to protect the player and his future prospects by not announcing what may or may not be an injury in relation to other teams maybe scouting him for a signing next year. I mean, maybe that's part of it, because these players obviously aren't making tons of money. So maybe that's part of the aspect. But as a fan, as somebody trying to really transition into the more media role, it frustrates me to no end when you see that lineup hit the Twitter sphere and you're just like, what's going on? Is my team melting? What is happening here?
You know what the reason why you get a lot more information from the NFL teams are, unless it's New England. There's one very clear reason why: betting.
Well, this is true.
You put all the information out there, then there's no inside info anyone can use to their advantage. And I will say there is betting that goes on with lower division soccer. I can vouch for that personally.
We know that people have money on the Rowdies to win the championship this year, and those tickets look really, really good right now. So for those listening,
I got to get my money in on that.
Oh, I'm so bothered by the people that actually did that. You guys suck.
You're just mad you didn't do it, too.
That looks like such a brilliant money spent right now. I hope it works out for you guys. I hope we win a championship for the people that actually bought tickets in Vegas for the Rowdies to win the championship. I just want us to win the championship just for those people to get their payday. That'd be amazing.
And honestly,
absolutely amazing.
We were talking about this the other night, and it's we would love to see the Rowdies just win out, home field advantage for the playoffs and the championship game. But how cool would it be if Reno or Vegas somehow gets to the top of the Western Conference, and we have to go there, win the game away, and then go cash the ticket in that night. I don't know if we'd come home with any money after that, but it would be a fun way to do it. All right, gosh, it's almost 9:30. We gotta move through this. Prediction.
Well, after the crazy awesome result from this past weekend, after the way we dominated Birmingham earlier this year away at Birmingham, I'm gonna go with a 2-0 victory.
All right.
For this week.
I'm going 3-0. Just gonna have a good time being back home.
Yes, it'll be good. It's good to be back and
be back in. We're gonna let the good times flow on back to school night, so I can get some new socks to wear to work. Very excited by this. All right, let's wrap this up. We love yous. I'm gonna go the cheesy easy way out. All the traveling supporters, you guys sounded fantastic. The team obviously appreciated you guys being there. And I'm sad I couldn't be there. So shout out to you guys. Who do you got?
I am going to take. I'm going to take shout out to Guizy, Sebastian Gonzatti, our captain, the leader of the boat on the field. He really enjoyed the interactions that we had post game, and for that matter, I mean, he obviously loved coming over during the game too when we did the celebration together. But he seemed to take particular joy in interacting with us a little bit even after the game. A little bit like the attitude that he was exhibiting was a little bit different than everybody else, which you want in your leader. You want for the veteran, quote unquote veteran that for our team. I that's my we love you is our team captain. I love Queasy. I love how you represent our club, how you represent, our badge. That's my we love you.
Speaking of that, back beginning of the season, and I go back to the kickoff party again when I don't know if they announced, I can't remember if they announced it there. I knew we knew about it that night that Seba was going to be the captain for the first home game. But talking to Neil, he had kind of said, look, this isn't something that's set in stone. We could have a rotating armband. But at this point, I can't really picture it starting out the game on somebody else.
Agreed. Yeah, at this point, I think it's pretty much solidified who's got that role.
Yeah,
and he 100% deserves it.
Absolutely. Thank you to Wolfface, to Radio St. Pete, and to Shamrock for your continuing support. Thank you to you guys for tuning in to listen, either live or later on as a podcast. Please continue to share, subscribe, rate, and review to put us out there in front of other people who have no better thing to do with their lives than put us into their ears. If you'd like to support the show on an ongoing basis, you can visit patreon.com/unusedsubspod and take advantage there. We greatly appreciate that as well. And thank you to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf suppliers of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. Steven, I'll see you on Saturday. Let's go kick some grass.
Let's go do this. Go Rowdies.
The Rowdies went here, the Rowdies went there, they kick the ball around. The Rowdies went here, the Rowdies went